At the family meeting, Dad announced, "You're a leech. You can't stay here anymore." I packed cut every bill, and the next morning he showed up screaming at my door. The moment still burns in my memory. At the family meeting, I thought Dad Robert wanted to talk about bills, or maybe close college applications, but instead, his voice cracked like a whip across the table. "You're nothing but a leech. Harper, you can't stay here anymore." The words sliced through the room, louder than the clinking of silverware. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. "Mom." Linda wouldn't even look at me, her eyes fixed on the untouched food. Lo's hands shook around her glass of water, but she said nothing. I had worked double shifts, paid the electric bill, covered Linda's doctor appointments, and even bought the groceries spread across the table that night. And yet, here I was, cast as the burden. Something inside me cracked. Not a plea, not tears, but resolve. If they wanted me gone, then I would leave, but I wouldn't leave empty-handed. I stared at Robert, my fork still suspended like a useless weapon. His jaw was tight, his voice hard. Each word meant to wound. "I've had enough," he snapped. "You strut around here like you own this house. Paying a few bills doesn't make you the boss. You're a leech. Harper, and I want you gone before the weekend." The silence in the dining room pressed against my chest. I looked at Linda, desperate for even the smallest defense, but she just sighed, adjusting her napkin as if the pattern of folds mattered more than my place in this family. "Harper," she murmured without meeting my eyes, "you'll still cover the medical insurance this month, won't you? I have that appointment Tuesday." The request felt like a knife, twisted deeper. Not a word to defend me, only a reminder of what I was still expected to pay. Across the table, close, wide eyes glistened. She bit her lip, trembling, but didn't speak. At 17, she was still too afraid of Robert to stand up for me. I put my fork down slowly, every movement deliberate. "Do you even hear yourselves? I've paid the power bill, the internet, the groceries, even your doctor's visits. Mom, in this," my voice caught, "this is what I get in return." Leech. Robert slammed his hand against the table, making the glasses rattle. "Don't twist this on us. You're acting like we owe you for doing what family does, but this is my house, my rules, and I say you're out." The rage I expected to feel didn't come. Instead, a strange calm settled over me, like the eye of a storm. I folded my napkin and set it down neatly beside my plate. "I understand perfectly." The words hung in the air. I saw Robert's eyes flicker with uncertainty at my composure. He expected tears begging, maybe even a screaming match. But not this. Linda broke the tension. First, clearing her throat. "Just make sure the check clears before Tuesday. Harper, that's all I ask." I laughed. A short, bitter sound. "Of course, Mom. I'll take care of it. One last time." I gathered my plate and close empty glass, carried them to the sink and rinsed them clean. My hands shook, but not from fear, from something else. A quiet certainty that my time here was ending, and maybe that was a gift behind me. Robert's voice rose again. "Did you hear what I said? Out by the weekend." I turned, meeting his glare with steady eyes. "No need to wait until the weekend," I said softly. "I'll be gone much sooner than that." The room fell into a silence, heavier than before. And for the first time, I felt in control. I closed my bedroom door behind me, the muffled sounds of clattering plates fading down the hall. My heart was pounding, but my hands moved with mechanical precision. I pulled an old suitcase from under the bed and began tossing in clothes, shirts, jeans, sweaters. None of it felt like mine anymore. Not in this house. Each fold was a silent vow. I will not beg. I will not return. As I opened my desk drawer for my passport and insurance papers, a stack of envelopes slid forward, and at first I thought they were mine, bills I hadn't sorted. But the name printed across the top stopped me cold. Robert Mitchell. I frowned, pulling them out one by one. Bank statements. Paper, not digital. Odd. I knew Robert had switched everything online months ago. My eyes scanned the balances, and my stomach turned Actien. July 4th. Lambay. August 5th. September. Nearly 7-0. All steadily increasing. While I'd been draining my savings to keep this family afloat, taped to the back of one statement was a glossy brochure for a fishing boat. Scribbled notes covered the margins. Down payment $5,500. Delivery after Thanksgiving. I gripped the paper until my knuckles whitened. So while I was paying for groceries and mom's appointments, you were saving for a damn boat. That, I whispered to the empty room. The door creaked open and Chloe slipped in. Her face pale. She froze at the sight of the half-packed suitcase. "You're really leaving?" she asked. Voice barely above a whisper. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I held up the stack of bank statements. "Did you know about this?" Her eyes darted away, guilt flashing across her face. "I heard them talking weeks ago." Dad said, "Anyone who warned you would be next." I didn't know what to do. The betrayal hit harder than the numbers on the page. "So, you let me keep paying everything." Knowing this was coming, my voice cracked, sharper than I intended. Tears welled in her eyes. I was scared. "Harper, I wanted to tell you. I swear. But you don't understand how he gets angry." I wanted to scream, to lash out at her, at all of them. But instead I sank onto the edge of the bed, the papers crumpling in my hand. "I'm done being afraid of him," I said finally, my voice low and steady. "If he wants me gone, fine. But he won't erase what I've done here. And he won't take me down quietly." Chloe stood frozen by the door, torn between loyalty and fear. For a moment, I almost paid her. Then I looked at the suitcase, at the evidence in my lap, and knew pity wouldn't save neither of us. "Close the door." "Chloe," I said, meeting her tearful eyes, "and let me finish packing." She obeyed silently, and the latch clicked shut. I was alone again. But this time I didn't feel powerless. The stack of papers trembled in my hands as I shoved them into my suitcase. But beneath the bank statements was another folder, my insurance documents. I flipped through, expecting to see records of Linda's checkups, maybe prescriptions instead. A single receipt slipped out and landed on the floor. I bent to pick it up, and my stomach dropped. Dermal filler injections. Not cardiology. Not any kind of medical necessity. Cosmetic procedures paid under my insurance plan. I sank back against the bed frame, my pulse hammering. 3 months ago, I had over 90 in savings. Now my account sits at barely 780. All that sacrifice, working extra shifts, skipping meals, rationing every dollar, and my mother had been smoothing wrinkles and plumping her lips, A bitter laugh tore out of me before I could stop it. So that's what my ramen noodles bought you. Mom. Fuller lips. The door creaked again and Cielo peeked in. Her eyes wide. She must have heard me. Harper. I held up the receipt. Do you know about this? Her silence was enough. She stared at the floor, guilt written all over her face. I shot up from the bed, my voice shaking with fury. I've been living like a ghost. Chloe, 3 jobs, skipping lunch to save $20. And I was sitting in a clinic getting fillers on my insurance clothes, eyes filled with tears. She told Dad it was for her health. She said you'd never check the details. I slammed the drawer shut, so hard the handle rattled. Of course she did. Why would I question it? I was too busy paying for everything else. Electricity, internet, groceries, hell, even the refrigerator downstairs has my name on the receipt. I pulled out my phone, opening the banking app. The screen glowed with the cruel reality. Tibe Bashar. Sishalo. My last lifeline. Chloe whispered. I'm sorry. I cut her off. My voice cold. Sorry, doesn't refill my account. Sorry, don't give me back my savings. Sorry, doesn't erase the fact that my own mother turned me into her personal ATM. And, oh, for a moment, the only sound was the soft hum of the heater. I felt close gaze on me, heavy with shame. But I couldn't bring myself to look at her. My fury wasn't only at Linda or Robert. It was at myself for letting them hollow me out. I stuffed the insurance papers into my bag and zipped it shut. This ends tonight. I won't give them another cent. Not one more bill. Not one more lie. Lo's lips parted like she wanted to say something. But no words came. She simply nodded and backed out of the room. When the door closed, I stood in the dim light of my room, staring at the suitcase. The betrayal weighed heavier than the clothes inside, but beneath the anger was something sharper. Stadia. Resolve. By sunrise, I would be gone. I dragged the suitcase to the center of my room, my hands moving with a purpose I hadn't felt in months. The anger had burned itself into clarity. Tonight wasn't about threats or ultimatums. Tonight was about escape. I pulled out a shoebox from under the bed, one I'd been keeping for years. Inside, carefully stacked, were receipts, the new refrigerator, clothes, laptop, utility bills with my name printed across the top. Every slip of paper was proof that I wasn't the burden they painted me to be. Proof that I had carried this house on my back. I slipped the box into the suitcase and zipped it closed. My heart thudded as I moved quietly across the floor, ears straining for sounds beyond my door. From the hallway came the muffled murmur of voices. I crept closer, pressing my ear against the thin wood. Robert's voice is low and smug. Once she's gone, we'll turn her room into storage. No more of her things cluttering the house. Linda gave a small laugh. She'll pay the insurance one last time before she leaves. That's all I care about. After that, she's someone else's problem. A cold wave washed over me. Not family. Not daughter. Just storage space. A bank account. I swallowed hard, forcing down the tears that threatened to rise. If I cried now, I'd lose my nerve. I turned the knob slowly and eased the door shut behind me, locking it with trembling fingers. My phone buzzed on the desk, Megan's name flashing across the screen. I snatched it up and whispered, "Can I crash at your place tonight?" Her voice was groggy but warm. "Of course. Harper, get out of there. I'll leave the door unlocked." I shoved the phone into my pocket. lifted the suitcase, and pushed open the window. The night air was sharp against my skin, carrying the distant hum of traffic and the faint bark of a dog down the street. For a second, I froze, staring at the driveway where my old car waited like a lifeline. One wrong creak on the stairs, and Robert would be on me. One slam door, and Linda would come running. I tightened my grip on the handle and whispered to myself, "You've paid for everything here. You owe them nothing." The words steadied me. I slipped down the stairs step by step. My breath caught in my chest. The house was silent, except for the faint tick of the grandfather clock. When I reached the front door, I paused. My reflection in the glass stared back at me, eyes red, hair disheveled, but alive with determination. I opened the door slowly. The hinge groaned louder than I wanted. I froze, listening. Nothing outside. The cool air embraced me. I loaded the suitcase into the trunk, slid behind the wheel, and started the engine. As I pulled out of the driveway, the house loomed in the rearview mirror. For the first time, it didn't look like home. It looked like a cage I'd finally broken free from. 3 days later, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. First, it was Aunt Carol, then Aunt Diane, then cousins I hadn't spoken to in months. Honestly, Harper. Aunt Carol's voice dripped with disappointment. "Your parents say you walked out and left them high and dry. How could you abandon them like that?" I clenched the phone tighter. Did Robert mention he threw me out, that Linda never once defended me? Silence, then a sigh. Families fight, but leaving them like this, it's heartless. I hung up before she could pile on more guilt. Another notification lit the screen. An endless stream of texts from relatives parroting the same story Robert had fed them. Harper ran away. Harper. Selfish. Harper doesn't care. I nearly laughed. They had no idea that I had drained my savings just to keep the lights on in that house at Megan's apartment. I sat cross-legged on the floor. Paperwork spread around me like battlefield maps, canceling autopay payments, transferring accounts, removing my name from every service that tied me to them. "Operation Financial Freedom," Megan asked, dropping a cup of coffee in front of me. "Almost done." I scribbled notes in a spiral notebook. Electricity, internet, insurance all canceled. I called the water company. Tomorrow I'll go to the bank." She raised an eyebrow. "Let me guess. They didn't take it well." I gave a bitter smile. "They don't know yet. But they will." The door swung open and Ethan stepped in, his golden retriever bounding ahead of him. "Evening, Harper," he said, grinning. "Meet Rocky. The world's neediest therapist works for belly rubs." Rocky bolted across the room, dropping a soggy tennis ball in my lap. His eyes gleamed with ridiculous expectation. I stared down at him. "What am I supposed to do this?" Ethan smirked. "Throw it or cry into it? Either way, he's happy." Against all odds. I laughed. The sound startled me. It had been days since I'd laughed without bitterness. I threw the ball in Rocky Tor after it paused, skidding across the hardwood. "See," Ethan said softly, "even therapy doesn't have to be complicated." For the first time, the tightness in my chest eased. But the relief was fragile because, even as I laughed at Rocky's goofy antics, my phone lit up again. This time, Linda. I let it ring. Then played the voicemail. Her voice was sharp, almost shrill. "What have you done?" "Harper, the power's out. The internet is gone. My appointment was canceled because the insurance didn't go through. You can't just leave us like this. We're your family. I pressed the phone to my ear, listening until her voice cracked, then deleted the message. Megan studied my face. How do you feel? Like I finally cut the chains. I looked at the pile of bills, but also like they're sharpening knives. That night, lying on Ethan's pull-out couch, I scrolled through my banking app. My balance was pitiful, barely enough for a deposit on a cheap apartment. The weight of starting over pressed heavy on my chest. 3 jobs, I muttered to myself. 3 months of paying their bills, and this is all I have left. Rocky patted over and rested his head on my chest, sighing like he understood. I stroked his fur, whispering, "They don't get to take any more from me. Not $0. Ling-yi. The next morning, Megan found me still surrounded by papers, eyes bloodshot, but determined. "Ready?" she asked. "Ready." We spent the day shutting doors Robert and Linda thought would stay open forever. I sat across from a bank clerk as she processed the paperwork. "Once this is finalized," she said, "your name won't appear on any of their accounts. They'll be responsible for everything themselves." A smile tugged at my lips for the first time in weeks. Perfect. But deep inside, I knew this was only the beginning. Because when Robert realized the money had dried up, when Linda couldn't book her next appointment, they wouldn't just sit back quietly. They'd come looking for me. And I had to be ready. It started with a pounding so violent the walls seemed to shake. Bang, bang, bang. Harper Roberts' voice thundered through the door. Roar with rage. "Open this door." Right now I froze in the living room pen, halfway across a page of my notebook. Megan's head jerked up from the couch. Ethan was already moving, stepping in front of me. Instinctively, Rocky barked furiously, tail stiff, ankle raised. "Don't answer it," Megan whispered, but the pounding only grew louder. Bang, bang, bang. "You think you can just walk out? You think you can humiliate me?" Robert's words were laced with venom. "You don't get to destroy this family and hide behind strangers." My hands trembled, but I forced myself to stand. "I should call 911. I whispered. Megan grabbed my arm. "Do it now." I dialed with shaking fingers, pressing the phone to my ear. "There's a man outside my apartment door," I told the dispatcher, my voice trembling but steady. "He's trying to break in. He's my father. Please send help." Meanwhile, Robert's threats escalated. "I swear, Harper, if you don't open this door, I'll crash." The wood splintered under his kick. Rocky snarled, leaping toward the noise. "Step back," Ethan hissed, pushing me behind him through the people I saw. Robert's face red, contorted with fury, sweat glistening on his forehead. This wasn't the stern father from my childhood. This was a man unhinged, consumed by losing control. "Harper," his voice cracked, "you think you're better than us. After everything I paid for you growing up, your braces, your college tuition, you owe me." The words sliced deeper than I expected, but this time, they didn't stick. My voice rose strong, despite the fear pounding in my chest. "I don't owe you a damn thing." "Sir." Step away from the door. A commanding voice boomed from the hallway. The elevator dinged, and 2 security guards appeared, flashlights cutting through the dim corridor. Robert spun, snarling, "This is between me and my daughter." "Not anymore." One guard barked, "Police are on the way. Step back now." But Robert lunged at the door again. the fists hammering, until Megan yanked me back toward the kitchen. Rocky barked louder, snapping at the sound of splintering wood. Then Zierens. The wail grew louder until it filled the entire street. Robert froze, shoulders heaving for a moment. I thought he might stop. Instead, he roared one last time. "You'll regret this. Harper, you'll regret ever crossing me." Blue and red lights flashed through the blinds. Within seconds, 2 officers stormed the hallway. One officer, Clark, shouted, "Hands where we can see them." Robert hesitated, then raised his hands slowly, fury still etched on his face. Officer Davis cuffed him while he shouted over his shoulder, "She's destroying this family. She's the selfish one. Not me." I stood frozen, clutching the edge of the counter until Clark turned to me. "Are you Harper Mitchell?" "Yes." I whispered, "You're safe now. We'll need your statement." As they led Robert down the hall, neighbors peeked out of their doors. "Mrs. Miller," gasped audibly. "Mrs. Johnson," whispered something to her husband, shaking her head. Their stares burned, but this time I didn't feel ashamed. I felt vindicated. Megan closed the door gently once the hall was clear. The apartment seemed impossibly quiet, the silence pressing after the chaos. Ethan locked every bolt, then turned to me. "Are you okay?" I sank onto the couch. "My knee's weak. I don't know." I admitted. "But I know this. I'm not going back. Not ever." Rocky climbed into my lap, panting, his warm body grounding me. I buried my face in his fur, letting out a shaky breath for the first time in years. I realized the truth. Robert could break doors, shout, twist the story to anyone who would listen. But he couldn't touch the resolve burning inside me anymore. That was mine, and I wasn't giving it back. The morning after Robert's arrest, the apartment felt like a war room. Papers covered every surface. Receipts, statements, insurance forms. Megan poured me coffee while Ethan arranged the documents into piles. Rocky snored at our feet, blissfully unaware of the storm swirling around us. Officer Clark called first. "Harper, we need to follow up last night. Do you have proof of financial contributions to your parents' household?" I nearly laughed. "Proof? I have a shoebox full." We met later at the precinct. I laid out everything, utility bills with my name on them, grocery receipts, medical payments. Officer Davis leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "You've been carrying this family for months, and they still called you a leech." My jaw tightened. "Exactly." Davis nodded grimly. "That helps your case, especially if you decide to pursue a restraining order." As they sorted through the evidence, my phone buzzed. Chloe's name lit the screen. "I hesitated," then answered. Her voice was shaky. "Harper Mom pounded your laptop, and the camera said you owed her." I closed my eyes, fury rising like bile. "Where Parkway porn?" I heard her bragging on the phone. She got $300. I gripped the phone tighter. Those were worth over 2000. Davis looked up. "Do you have receipts? Serial numbers?" "Yes." I pulled the papers from my folder, thrusting them across the table. "Good," Davis said, jotting notes. "Pawning someone else's property without consent is theft. We'll recover them." That afternoon, they escorted me back to the house. My stomach turned as the old front door loomed into view. Curtains twitched across the street. "Mrs. Miller. Mrs. Johnson." Half the neighborhood watching. Linda opened the door, her smile brittle when she saw the officers. Harper. Honey, you didn't need to bring police with you. We can settle this as a family. Officer Clark's tone was firm. We're here so Harper can collect her belongings safely. Step aside. Ma'am. Linda's expression soured. But she moved. I strode past her. My eyes locked on the familiar hallway. The air smelled of lemon cleaner and betrayal. In my room, I packed quickly. Books. Clothes. The few things that still felt like mine. I pulled out receipts from the shoe box, ready to defend every item. Linda hovered in the doorway. That desk stays. It's family property. I held up a receipt. Bought it with my first paycheck. My name. My card. Want to see the date? Her mouth snapped shut. Clark raised an eyebrow. She has proof. Everything she takes is hers. I continued methodically. Every fold of clothing is a declaration of independence. Then I heard the rumble of an engine. My heart stopped as a familiar car rolled into the driveway. My car. Robert stepped out, keys dangling from his fist. A triumphant smirk plastered on his face. He stormed outside. The officers on my heels. That's my car. Robert sneered. Spare key. Harper. You think I'd let you just drive off after everything I paid for your braces? In your tuition. You owe me that car. I yanked a folder from my bag and thrust it at Officer Davis' title registration. Both in my name. Davis scanned the papers, then turned to Robert. Sir, this vehicle belongs to Harper. Hand over the keys. Robert's face flushed crimson. She wouldn't even have an education without me. I put food in her mouth for 18 years. Clark stepped closer. Voice. Iron keys now for a long, tense moment. Robert's hand tightened around the key ring. Then, with a furious growl, he slapped them into Davis's palm. I snatched them, holding them tight. My voice shook, but not with fear, with power. Come near me or my property again, and I'll file for a restraining order and I'll win. The neighborhood was silent. Mrs. Miller stood on her porch, eyes wide. Mrs. Johnson clutched her phone, no doubt texting half the block. Robert's shoulders slumped, his face hollow. For the first time, he looked small. I slid into the driver's seat, the keys warm in my hand as the engine roared to life. I caught Chloe in the doorway. Her eyes brimmed with tears, one hand raised in a tentative wave. I drove away, leaving the house and the cage it represented, shrinking in the rearview mirror. 3 months later, sunlight streamed through the gauzy curtains of my tiny apartment, painting warm patterns across the floor. The space wasn't grand, just a modest one-bedroom with second-hand furniture, but every inch of it was mine. The rent came from my paycheck, the lights from my account, the color of the walls from my choice. No one could snatch it away. Thanksgiving arrived quietly. I slid a small turkey onto the wobbly dining table, its surface scarred with scratches. But tonight, it gleamed under the glow of string lights I'd hung myself. Chloe hovered by the counter, to her shoulders more relaxed than I'd ever seen. She'd moved into her college dorm last month, away from Robert's constant shouting and Linda's manipulations. Her eyes carried something new. Confidence. Need any help? She asked timidly. I smiled. Your company is more than enough. Megan and Ethan joined us, Rocky padding around our feet, tail wagging like he sensed the shift in the air. We raised our glasses. Megan's voice steady. To found family and to boundaries worth keeping. As laughter filled the room, I thought about the unopened envelopes stacked on my bookshelf. Letters from Robert and Linda begging for another chance, each one untouched. Sometimes I wondered what they said. Did they regret it? Or did they just want another lifeline? Chloe leaned closer, whispering, "They're still blaming you for everything. But honestly, they're just facing what would have happened anyway. You leaving only sped it up." Her words sank in. Maybe she was right. Maybe cutting myself loose wasn't betrayal. It was survival. Later, as I washed dishes, I caught my reflection in the kitchen window. My eyes no longer looked hollow. They looked steady. My life was mine now. Fragile? Maybe. But free? Still one. The question lingered like a shadow. When family betrays you so completely, do you shut the door forever, or do you ever let it open just a crack?